discussing an essay we just published on Substack, Don't Punish Elon Musk for Doing Magic. The essay is about the deep, entrenched fear of technology that actually spans throughout a lot of human history, in particular Western history. We go all the way back to Greek mythology. We talk about Prometheus and his punishment by the gods because he gave technology and wisdom to humanity. We then go over to Faust and end with, in our opinion, sort of the culmination of philosophy of science, sort of at the beginning of the 20th century with people like Bertrand Russell and then Heisenberg and Wittgenstein and Gödel, and then eventually with Karl Popper. We offer a solution to what we call the Promethean paradox. Promethean paradox is that on the one hand, we love technology. It gives us freedom. It gives us leverage. It gives us well-being and welfare and wealth. But we're also fearing it. We're fearing it the same way that the Greek gods feared it. And the answer to this paradox, in our opinion, is Karl Popper, who puts two things at the forefront. One, he takes away the shackles of truth finding. So it's not that you have to find the truth. The purpose of science is not to find the truth. The purpose of science is just to improve. So that's number one. And number two, that because of that, also we have to embed science or engulf it in society. It's not just about technology. Shut up and calculate is not the right advice. It's shut up and communicate. And what we mean with that is that technology is just one variable of many, and we have to find a comprehensive way to deal with technology, to treat it as a feature, not a bug of society, and then have a society that benefits from technology in a more holistic way. What I mean with that in practice is that we can't just say technology is a good thing, AI is, it's going to help our kids write essays, and then at the same time not prepare them for a world where things change fast, where they might lose their jobs much faster than their the other generations before them. We have to have social institutions. We have to have inclusive institutions. That's very important. I'm not asking for more regulation or anything like that. All I'm asking for in this particular essay is, of course, again, it's about the Promethean paradox, and it's about the fear of technology, which I think is deep entrenched in society. And I think technology is a good thing. And I think we as technologists, particularly living in Silicon Valley, but all over the world, anybody who wants to carry the torch of technology and continue with this really amazing endeavor of creating superpowers and magic with technology, we have to embed it in a broader structure of society. So technology comes with powers and with responsibility. This is another In-Run podcast. It's October 31st, 2024. This is Krim Telco. For the day, the fund is down 4.4%. The market is down 2.5%. For the year, we are up 25.1%. The market's up 19.8%. We're outperforming by 5.3%. So this essay, Don't Punish Musk for Doing Magic, starts with a discussion of what we call the Promethean paradox. And that, in simple terms, just means, why are we scared of science and technology? And before I even go there, let me first discuss a little bit what I mean with science and technology. In my opinion, science and technology are two sides of the same coin. So we don't actually have to separate it. And the separation is already part of the problem. Science and technology are the same thing. And I say it in the essay, technology, or in particular engineering, actually. What I mean with technology is engineering. So we have science, and then we have engineering, which is basically what technology means. It means that when science gets instantiated into products, and for that we need engineering. But what I argue against is, I think that we shouldn't have a separation, and that this separation actually is already part of the problem, right? We have the ivory tower scientists on the one hand, and then we have the sort of the engineers on the other hand. They need to work in tandem. They need to work together because, again, you can't have science without engineering. Science without engineering is like having religion. That's just play, right? Science without engineering, it's play. It is really, like Wittgenstein says, it's kind of just poetry, poetry for nature or something like that. And engineering without science would be like religion without purpose, I mean, you can't just keep doing stuff without having a bigger purpose, without understanding a bigger picture of what you're doing. And if you have engineering without science, then you end up in a paperclip economy, or maybe a little bit what's happening in Silicon Valley, where we start optimizing for clicks and those sort of things, when instead we should be working on much bigger problems. So we need both sides. And I think this separation is already part of the problem that I discuss in the essay, because the separation, in my opinion, started with the involvement of the government in science. It has a little bit of history. We go into that in the essay. There was a time after World War II when science was really key, and when the purpose of science really was to create real products that we might not agree with, products such as the nuclear bomb, but also less aggressive things like such as harnessing nuclear power for industry, things like that. And with that, a lot of money went, grants and things like that, and government involvement went into science. And then science kind of separated itself from engineering and technology because it was much more convenient to write papers and get grants and actually do real things that benefit humanity. So this is part of the problem. But let me step back now and discuss sort of the outline of the essay, because I think it's really important. So we start with the history. Basically, we start with the question, why are people afraid of science? The answer is, don't be afraid. It's a feature, not a bug of society, and it's good for us. We just have to look at it from a different perspective. The answer, the way we should look at it, is we should look at it like Karl Popper told us to look at it, which is that science is not about finding the truth. Science is about improving, and science is always about getting, better solutions for existing, situations. And when we say better, we don't just mean technological solutions. We always mean a holistic solution. So, for example, if we have self-driving cars and we free people from standing at the steering wheel for 4 hours or whatever per day, we also have to find ways to entertain them in the car. We have to find ways to clean the car. And most importantly, also, we have to find ways to deal with thousands and millions of taxi drivers who lose their job. So we have to have a holistic solution for technological innovations. We can't treat technology as kind of some sort of separate exogenous thing, and then everybody else has to adapt all the time, and the technologists are telling us we're stupid because we're not understanding how important it is what they're doing. No, we should have a comprehensive solution and treat technology like it's endogenous. There are examples that, let's say, Singapore has now a ministry of AI engineering, or a part of the Ministry of Communication in Singapore is dealing with AI, building a platform for AI engineering. And what they're doing is really trying to make it a beneficial platform for the society in Singapore. So this is not just getting tax breaks for people to come and work in AI in Singapore. It's a comprehensive solution to benefit society within this particular context. So the history of technology and the history of how people dealt with technology starts with Prometheus. Prometheus is a titan in Greek mythology. He defies Zeus by stealing fire from Zeus and showing it to humanity. And with fire, he's showing them the power of enlightenment and technology. Zeus gets angry, punishes him for eternity, and he does that because, of course, he defied him, but more importantly also because he shouldn't have shown humanity the superpower of technology. That's a bad thing. Now the question is, why is Zeus angry? This is the fundamental question. We then discuss other similar topics in human philosophy, particularly Goethe's Faust, and then we talk also about Dr. Faustus, which is Thomas Mann's piece, which is sort of a next version of Faust, and the idea of selling your soul in exchange for having the superpower of magic, having the superpower of actually being able to use technology for good things, and so on and so forth. So why is philosophy, particularly German philosophy, which is ironic, right? The land of engineers, the land of doers, brings up this really techno-skeptical philosophy. Why is that, right? And we then go on and actually sort of finish the chapter of epistemology, which in my opinion was once and for all closed. The chapter of truth finding, the chapter of, let's say, having the illusion that science is a truth finding endeavor. The lid was put on that by Kurt Gödel in the 1930s. So we have this dramatic events in the first part of the 20th century that there's obviously a lot of people who contributed to that. We just pick a few of them. Bertrand Russell, in his Principia Mathematica with Whitehead, they write about, they try to bring a foundation, a scaffolding of logic within language that is based on math and logic. And they find that they can't do that because, in part, because of annoying self-references, buildings such as, for example, statements like, this statement is false, right? That's a statement that cannot be said in a logically consistent way. Or one of his favorite ones was the set of all items that are not part of the set. That's of course again an inconsistency with itself. So that's sort of the beginning of, let's say, when we see scratches in the wall here, when we realize, wait a minute, logic and math and pure reason, it looks like we can't get to the truth, because the logic and math in itself seem to have inconsistencies. Then we have Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein takes this and says, well, if you can't really use math, how about language? And language has its limitations too, of which one cannot speak, one should not talk about, something like that. That's a quote. Now, I don't want to go too deep here into the history of philosophy, but I would say what Wittgenstein basically says is, listen, science is a word game. It's poetry. It's applied to nature. So let's not get too excited. Now, people might say, okay, whatever. He can say whatever he wants, but I think it's important. It's an important step to the next one, which is Heisenberg, which I think this is really starting to sort of to chisel away the confidence of the physics professor in the 1920s. And that is the uncertainty principle. What the uncertainty principle says is that we can't measure reality. We can measure some of it, but we can never measure the whole thing. It's impossible. It's fundamentally reality, the way it's built, and there's some really deep philosophical and mathematical concept behind this here. Later on, maybe Everett and the multiverse people would have an explanation for that, which is simply, well, because of the multiverse situation that we live in, we just don't see all the multiverses, and therefore we don't see the full set of realities. I don't want to go into that, but what Heisenberg shows is that measurement, so it's not just that we can't use math and language for a proper description of reality, we can't even measure reality. And then there's the final kill with Gödel, the incompleteness theorem, which has the math in itself is inconsistent. It can show stuff which is true, but not provable, and it can prove stuff which might not be true. And most importantly, the second inconsistency theorem, which is the total kill, which just says that even logic in itself cannot be shown as being consistent. So you can't use logic to show stuff, and logic in itself cannot be shown to be consistent and, fully true. So once all of this is said and done, people are probably pretty disappointed. Now, of course, doesn't mean that the universities close shop and that we just go on and do other things. They kept doing what they were doing, but there was a sort of an identity crisis. Now, this is the 1930s, so obviously other world events take over, and maybe this whole identity crisis is not so crucial. If you're a scientist in Berlin in the 1930s, you might have other problems than just thinking about truth finding. You might have the Gestapo harassing you and stuff like that. So you're, again, world events take over. And as we argue in the essay, they also answer the question, the world events take over and answer the question to scientists, particularly in the physics departments, what their purpose is. And the purpose is build nuclear bombs, build stuff that can blow up other people, and so on and so forth. Now I'm simplifying, but I guess what happened is there was a sort of purpose of science was built into the necessities of the time, for better or for worse. I think that the conclusion of that time is, of course, the Manhattan Project, and then a massive, massive amount of optimistic technology positivism that sort of came after the 1950s. And that's what Peter Thiel also talks about in his book Zero to One. We were optimistic about the future because we were optimistic about science. And there's a big difference between then and today. I don't think today we're optimistic about science. We tolerate it, we take it whenever we can, but we're a little bit scared. And I think the reason we're a little bit scared, something happened in the 1970s, and I don't know what it is. There's something about the 1970s, but maybe it's just sort of the time, you have World War II, 1945, you have about 25 years of optimism, and then things start changing. And what changes is that we start fearing technology again. We start fearing technology. And I think it culminates in today, Elon Musk is a divisive figure. And by the way, way before he started getting involved in politics, Elon Musk used to be a Democrat in the 2010s. I believe he was close to the Obama administration. So he wasn't really anything like today, where he's clearly anti-Democrat and all that, anti-deep state, censorship. Back then, it was more like he was, pro-technology and pro-optimism and solving problems, solving climate change with new technologies, things like that he still stands for. But what I'm trying to say is, even back then, there was skepticism, and I wonder why. Why were people skeptical? I ask myself sort of, I don't know, 2015, 16, why wouldn't you buy a slick Model S car instead of, let's say if you pay $80,000 or $100,000 for a German car, why don't you just buy Model S? Isn't it just better? Everything is better. And there was some sort of reluctance. I could see it around my friends. I could see it, in my family. It was weird. And I think it's because people are inherently scared of technology. They don't, people don't, some people love it and some people are concerned about it. And I think what Musk is trying to do with all his power, with his communication skills and marketing skills, is convince people, hey, technology is a good thing. It's positive. And I think the answer to this Promethean paradox, to come back to the Promethean paradox, it is really Karl Popper, okay? If we look at technology from this perspective, from Popper's perspective, look, it's not about finding the truth. It's not an absolute thing, right? It's not like, look, you either, like the cybercap is the truth, and it's much better than everything else, Starship, going to Mars, whatever it may be. It's not about the truth. The question is simply, look, can we do better? Can we improve the current conditions? The quest of humanity, ever since Prometheus showed us fire, if we go back to Greek mythology, we can go probably even further back in Chinese or Indian mythology. I'm just not familiar with those. But the quest is just to improve the living conditions of humanity. That's all there is. And when we do that, we have to do it in a comprehensive way. So, meaning it's part of a bigger picture. Like I said, when we solve a problem, we create new problems, hopefully better problems. For example, when OpenAI and ChatGPT solved the problem of writing, not fully, but it took away a lot of tedious writing exercises that people have to do. Or let's get even a much simpler example: the calculator. The calculator developed not far from here by HP, Hewlett Packard, and others. What did it do? It just solved some of the problems that we had with doing math, calculations. I mean, and it's fine. But it creates new problems. For example, it creates, okay, how do we educate people that were really good at doing math before the calculator? What can they do in the next? And the answer was, well, how about we there's something called a programmer, which back then were mainly women writing programs that engineers wrote for them. And today, this whole thing is going again. Like the programmer, in my opinion, is being lost. The software engineer, the systems engineer, the systems architect. Those are the kinds of jobs that, in my opinion, will be the future. So if you study coding today, don't get your hopes very high. Coding is not going to be a skill that is in demand, but system architecture, system design, things along those lines, thinking how to integrate larger systems, solve problems, how to reduce cost per something, or increase tokens per something, that kind of thing. That's what people really need in computer engineering. Building batteries for electric cars. Some of the problems that this type of work entail are being solved as we speak. For example, getting better understanding of molecular dynamics could be solved with better computer vision technologies, or even with quantum computing and quantum simulation. But that doesn't mean that the people who are in the labs right now will lose their jobs. They will have to ask much more interesting questions. They will have to train themselves to use new technologies faster and more efficiently. My son, for example, wants to work on dark matter, which is a really exciting problem if you think about it. 5% of the universe is visible, the rest isn't. Well, what the hell is out there? How can we detect it? I believe new truths will come out, new understandings of reality, but it's not going to be the whole truth. It's just going to be a new truth, and that will then, of course, change the problem set that we work with and hopefully bring new questions to bear. So as a conclusion, the Promethean paradox really is the problem. Why are we scared of technology? And the answer is we shouldn't be scared, because once we look at it from the perspective of we're improving, this is not an absolute, it's better or worse. It's just we can use technology to improve the human condition. And anybody who's in the field of technology has the responsibility to do that. This is the key. This is the Promethean paradox. Prometheus was punished because he showed the magics of technology and enlightenment, but he didn't tell humanity that it requires also responsibility. And I think, therefore, as a conclusion, we say, shut up and calculate is the worst advice you can give to scientists. It's shut up and communicate. And Elon Musk is doing his part, I would say, more than sometimes even healthy. He's going out of his way to communicate what they're doing and why they're doing it and what the purpose is. And we can improve on that too. We can find better purposes. We can change the dynamics of those. Let's say we can say we don't necessarily have to go to Mars, but we can do this or that. But the key is be out there and have a holistic approach towards technological innovation. Thank you.